This is CBC Windsor News. I'm Chris Henson. Katarina is away. Thanks for joining us. We start with a look at Windsor's proposed budget and what it could cost homeowners in 2025.
So thank you all for being here.
Windsor's mayor is pitching his draft budget, saying once again it's the hardest he's ever done, but that it hits a campaign promise. 2.9% tax hike below the rate of inflation. Big spending on capital projects to help the city grow, increases to user fees, and job cuts.
There are proposed staff reductions in the budget for sure. Yeah, that's the only way. I mean, we're a service-centric service, like delivery service. So those services require staff to deliver them. And so there's no way to move from 12.9% pressure down to 2.99% unless you're willing to make some difficult decisions.
The initial figures shocked some when it was released in September, sending council and city staff searching for savings.
Some of the discussions were tough because we've cut to the bone, pretty close to the bone in many of our service areas, and so there isn't necessarily a lot in all of the areas to look at.
Council's decisions to not increase taxes at all in previous years are catching up.
We made the decisions for the right reasons, but eventually that catches up to you, and that's what we're seeing. The pressure has caught up to us, which means we have to sensibly figure out how to deal with this.
How he plans to do that isn't exactly clear. Anything involving city staff job cuts is handled in private and won't be made public until a decision is made. Here's an example. There's a $1.4 million cut to Transit Windsor's budget, but there are no details. The mayor did say the tunnel bus is under review, the international crossing requiring the city provide transit staff 10 federally mandated sick days, hiking the overall costs of the service.
That's one of the things that, I say there's no sacred cows. That's a possibility. There's certainly an implication with the tunnel bus that City Council will have to consider in terms of the cost that's associated with operating that service.
There's big bucks for major roadways in the capital budget, $169 million for Lozon Parkway and Cabana Road East, and $35 million to get the land around the airport and new hospital ready for development.
You often find, and I'll just use the term, the devil is often in the details with these budgets, and I'm looking forward to combing through it.
Some details that council will consider to bring in more money include increasing parking meter fees by $0.25 an hour and making people pay to park between 6 and 9 at night, as well as increasing parking-related fines. People can have their say at the January 13th City Council meeting. City Council goes over the budget on the 27th. We'll have continued coverage on our website as well. An ongoing drug crisis, the evolving avian flu, and measles. It's all top of mind for our health unit heading into 2025. Here's the CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa on this year's priorities.
Here are some of the health stories that we're tracking in Windsor, Essex this year. Will our region get a new treatment facility for people struggling with addiction? They're called Homelessness and Addiction Recovery Treatment Hubs, or Heart Hubs. And the province is looking to approve 19 of them, aiming to have them up and running by April. These hubs will offer treatment programs for people struggling with addiction, shifting away from drug consumption and treatment sites. Windsor applied to get one a few months ago, and in the coming weeks, we're supposed to hear if we've been approved. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit is also boosting efforts to fight this ongoing crisis. It's created a new department, Substance Use Prevention and Harm Reduction. Bird flu has been found in birds in our region. So what happens next? At the end of December, a rehabilitation facility for animals in Amherstburg found that several waterfowl under its care had tested positive for bird flu. Though there's been no human cases locally, the health unit says it's on alert.
Our hospitals test for possible bird flu and send it to Public Health Ontario. Their lab tested for different types of avian flu, and they will inform us quickly. We continually monitor the virus with the leading public health agencies across the country and around the world, and the consensus is that the risk to human at this time is low.
And speaking of illnesses, we'll continue to check in on the spread of infectious diseases. The health unit says that it's looking to boost immunity in our community, specifically with things like chickenpox, whooping cough, and measles. They're encouraging more people to get vaccinated. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Colette Kennedy joins us now for a quick live look at the weather. A lot of stuff on that radar there.
Yes, there is. You know, it doesn't take much, Chris, a little shift in the winds, and we pick up some of that flurry or light snow activity again, coming off this time Lake Huron. So we had some action from Lake Michigan yesterday, more of a northwesterly flow, and we're getting into this activity. Generally light in nature, maybe getting a bit of a dusting, and that's what we're going to kind of see because it carries on tonight, and then there's even a chance tomorrow, although I've reduced the percentage down to about 30%. What I do know for sure, cold air tonight, -8, feeling like -15, and the high tomorrow just -4. We'll talk about those temperatures and what we're going to be experiencing coming up.
Thanks, Colette. A good friend can be hard to find, but as the CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa tells us, there might be one waiting for you on a green bench.
She's one cool grandma.
Oh, thank you. And you're one cool grandson.
Words Cecile Wilkinson has always wanted to hear, but at 83, she didn't think she'd ever become a grandmother, until suddenly she was.
It was one day, and I was like, I want to get a book at the library. So I go to the library, and we're like, oh, there's a green bench here.
It was a green bench at the library in Tecumseh. Sitting on it was Wilkinson. She lives at the village of Aspen Lake in Windsor, a seniors' home run by Schlegel Villages. The company started the Green Bench initiative with a simple goal: give seniors the chance to share their wisdom with others.
I just figured that was to be it, just sitting on the bench, but then they introduced me to Matthew. I didn't expect all this.
We had similar, interests. She likes Disney, and I also love Disney. Really just, I found your life really interesting.
I really enjoyed his company. I'm surprised that anybody would take interest in me, you know. Oh, thank you.
Matthew and Wilkinson met in June, and the visits continue. They aren't related, but the pair laugh and talk like they've known each other forever. This friendship coming along at just the right time.
It's going to be a year that I lost my husband, and it's just a little bit sad, but I know I'm going to try to be happy for him. He would want me to be happy.
And his memory lives on in the stories she shares with Matthew.
I'm learning about, how she lived her life and how it's kind of similar how I'm trying to live my life. She always lived her life with, kindness, and I just kind of want to do the same thing.
Schlegel Villages donated a green bench to Essex County Library, and right now it's here at the LaSalle branch, but it's going to be moving to different locations, inviting you to pause and connect, just like Wilkinson and Matthew did.
We really need to celebrate our seniors and what they have to offer. A vibrant community needs its elders, and so we need to be having conversations with them and having that opportunity to build relationships between generations.
Other people who might see this green bench out in the community, what's your advice to them?
I feel like if there's someone you can connect to, and if there's someone around that you want to talk to, I feel like you should do it, because it might not be anything, but you don't know. It could be some start of a great friendship, or it could be just something really interesting that impacts your life in a way you never thought it would.
Just having him in my life, it's changed me. I feel a lot better that somebody wants to be with me.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
You can tell they get along because of their shirts. Very cool sweaters they got on there. Do you know Windsor has its very own accent? There's a twist of the tongue that can give your hometown away. You may have been speaking this way for years without even knowing it. The CBC's Dawson Chen explains.
Do you come down slightly hard on the R sound in words like hair or dare? Do you ask where the restroom is? Then you might be speaking with a Windsor dialect and accent. And yes, such an accent does exist, according to an accent expert.
Windsor definitely does have an accent. Oh yeah, everywhere has an accent.
For the past 15 years, John Fleming has worked as a professional dialect and accent coach, helping film and television actors sound like they're from somewhere else. That's made him highly attuned to regional nuances in the way people talk, even people from his native southwestern Ontario.
I'm from St. Thomas. When I'm talking to people from St. Thomas or whatever, I feel like my mouth kind of stretches a little side to side more.
According to Fleming, the Windsor accent is a variation of the southwestern Ontario accent, which is a variation of the greater Canadian accent. That means we've got the Canadian ows.
We've got our classic out and about, which, Americans hear as oot and about, but of course we here know that it's more like ow, ow.
Other things Fleming notices are our slightly heavier and flatter R's, plus a monotone tendency. Fleming calls it a lack of music in the accent, and having the voice sit in the back of the mouth. But what turns the southwestern Ontario accent into a Windsor one? According to Fleming, it comes down to word choices. Windsorites are more likely to be comfortable with U.S. terms: restrooms instead of washrooms, robe instead of housecoat, Fahrenheit instead of Celsius.
Oh yeah, more American than anything, especially how everybody uses Fahrenheit over here.
I don't really know how to explain it, but we definitely pronounce things very differently.
And if you doubt that there is a Windsor accent, just compare with someone who isn't from around here. Fleming points out that the Detroit River is like a barrier between the Windsor accent and what's called the inland Northern American accent. That's how people talk in Michigan and Ohio.
Like, I bet one of the things that you have noticed, the inland northern, are things like lots, top, job, cloth, office, right? That sort of big open ah sound where we would top, job, coffee, office, right?
I'm from Mount Vernon, Ohio. That's what we've heard. People say that we have an accent here.
I'm not quite sure. We were really told. We're just, everybody said we had an accent.
Of course, since I wasn't born here, I don't have a Windsor accent. Should be pretty obvious. I'm from Belleville. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Now, for reporters here at CBC Windsor, every day is different. Dawson Chen just explained it there. Many of our journalists, we've had them look back and reflect on the stories that stand out to them and the ones that really affected them last year. Tonight, Windsor Morning host Amy Dodge sharing a lighthearted moment that never made it into her original story about mammograms.
Hi, I'm Amy Dodge. I'm the host of Windsor Morning. Welcome to our studios. So a memorable story for me in 2024 would have been when I met a young boy. He found a message in a bottle at the Bell River Beach. He took that message to school with him on the following Monday and learned that the person who wrote that message in a bottle wrote it 26 years ago and was also a student at his school. The daughter of the person who wrote the message was in that grade 4 class. So we reunited all those people together, heard their story, and also with the teacher who did the assignment. What stood out to me about this story was just how much traction it got. It was a story that was picked up by a lot of media outlets. It was picked up by Good Morning America, People's Magazine, a TV station in Norway, Fox News, Vice, Inside Edition, and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and the list goes on and on. Another story that stood out for me was when I got my first mammogram this year. We took a camera crew along with us, and it's not always what is in the story that is most memorable. Sometimes it's the stuff that we leave out, and that's what happened. I showed up in the exam room, and I didn't have any pants on, and the examiner sort of noticed that and said, where are your pants? Go put your pants on. And I was so mortified and embarrassed that we didn't include it in the TV piece. I did include it in my radio portion, but I did take that clip, I isolated it and put it on social media.
You got all. I have underwear on. Yeah. You haven't put your pants on. Oh!
It was watched, it's still being watched 1.5 million times. But it's not the number of views or the fact that it went viral that stood out to me. It was the comments, because here I was thinking I was the only one that could have possibly have done this. And I had hundreds of other women say they did the exact same thing. An examiner who said she has this happen all the time where people turn up for their mammogram without any pants on. And then other women with really funny comments just sort of about the hospital gown itself, what to take off, what to keep on when they have exams. And that really just stood out to me as something that is memorable for 2024. I'm looking forward to 2025, and I guarantee I will keep my pants on.
Amy Dodge, absolute delight. Love that story. Love the moment she came back from that appointment and shared it with the rest of us in the office. We were howling, it must have been for a while about that. That is the beautiful skyline there that we've got in the city of Windsor. A bit of snow all day today, but it is a deep chill that is eventually coming our way. We got more news after the break. New rules designed to make it easier to purchase a home have come into play for the new year. Unfortunately, there aren't enough homes for all the people who want one. So new construction, that's also an issue. It's not keeping up with demand. But some Canadian companies, they're turning to robots, trying to speed up that building process. CBC's Anis Hadari reports.
They're now actually building a real home.
In this Alberta warehouse, machines are assembling houses the same way they'd assemble a car.
The same two robots are building all the 25 walls that are going into the same house. And you can see over there, we got two more robots. They're building all the floors of the same house.
Promise Robotics is developing ways to build housing using commercial, mass-produced machinery, not custom.
These robots basically are off the shelf.
The company says its AI software means these robots can complete dozens of tasks.
We actually don't expect ever builders to learn about robotics, machinery, manufacturing, and that's why we think there is a scalable play here, where you can now take it to many, many more builders and developers across US and Canada.
This type of technology could speed up construction as Canada faces a housing crunch. It's not the only Canadian housing tech out there. Horizon Legacy develops technology that can pour concrete, a robot named Val.
Val can lift 230 kilograms day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So she's taking the manual labor intensive part, the backbreaking part.
But while broader industry players say robotics can speed things up, the investments are expensive and housing can be unpredictable.
The industry is built to withstand boom-bust nature of the housing market, and large overhead becomes more difficult to be nimble.
The Home Builders Association points out regulations and zoning are also ways to speed up construction, not just robots. But back at Promise, they say their tech can cut house construction time in half.
They're basically like a Legos, right? Like once you produce those, then you're able to put them together really fast.
Brick by brick or gear by gear. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Edmonton.
There are calls for new warning labels on liquor. The Surgeon General in the United States says consumers need to know about the cancer risks associated with alcoholic beverages. Now, Surgeon General notes that alcohol consumption is the third leading preventable cause of cancer in the United States. Smoking and obesity, number 1 and number 2. Drinking increases the risk of breast, colon, liver, and other cancers. It's blamed for 100,000 cancer cases in the U.S. and 7,000 in Canada every year. Well, a lot of us have suspected that our devices are listening in on our conversations, and Apple now has agreed to settle a class action lawsuit that accuses the company's virtual assistant Siri of eavesdropping. CBC's Scott Peterson has the details.
Apple has settled for $95 million in a lawsuit that accuses Apple of allowing Siri to record conversations and then to share those conversations with advertisers from September 2014 to the end of last year. And that $95 million is just a sliver of what Apple has made since 2014, for example, making $750 billion profit since then. And so that represents, if doing the math, about 9 hours of profit for Apple. Now, legal analysts say that that settlement is a bargain. Now, by settling, it allows Apple to not admit any guilt whatsoever, also avoiding the publicity of a trial, avoiding bigger charges, potentially, of wiretapping or breaking privacy laws, which is a much bigger fine, representing over $1.5 billion. So this is expected to be finalized in court in February if the judge does accept that settlement by Apple. And it also goes against the CEO, Tim Cook, and his pledge for consumer privacy, saying, quote, that consumer privacy is a fundamental human right. Now, Apple is not alone on this. Google and their voice messaging database also is being accused of listening in on private conversations. And with the advent of AI infecting everything from Siri to all kinds of voice activations, there's a lot of worry by skeptics out there that this is not the last we're going to hear about these privacy issues. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
The cost of convenience. We take another live look outside this evening. Colette's up next. Welcome back, Colette here. Now, I know that you were talking about this chill Sunday night. A lot of us have circled on our calendar there. Big game, Lions, Vikings in Detroit, wind chill. Are we tailgating with everything on top of us at this point?
Yes. Yes. The only thing I can say is at least the winds won't be as strong by then, so there'll be a wind chill. But finally, by that time, Sunday evening, they'll have dropped off a little bit, and at least the game's indoors. But yeah, hey, we're hardy people, right? That's how that tailgating goes. And just speaking of some of that cold air kind of coming in, just showing you the jet stream, allowing that Arctic air to plunge in. So cold enough Saturday into Sunday, but as we get into the beginning of next week, if anything, it kind of doubles down here and even more cold air pushes through. It's actually going to drive a pretty strong storm across the Midwestern U.S. towards the eastern seaboard, but it keeps it south of us at least. It can't keep that cold air away, however, and that kind of lingers into next week. Our current readings looking like this, -3 in many cases in terms of what we're experiencing, just the air temperature, but we know we've got to factor these winds in. And as they've shifted a little more northwesterly to just westerly from yesterday, that's why we're getting now some of those squalls kind of coming down more so from Lake Huron, but it's enough to give these wind chills, -10 or even colder, -11 currently in Windsor. If you're doing any travel in the province, there are some nasty conditions with the snow squalls, and again, they can kind of take you off guard because you're in dry conditions, and then you get into one of these squalls and go into whiteout conditions. So that's what's happening a little bit further to the north, and you can see those very clearly here on the radar. Today, they shifted more towards the London area, back towards Goderich, and then they're going to shift back as the winds change again tomorrow, moving back towards kind of Georgian Bay and Barrie in that region. We're getting a little bit of light stuff from this, and certainly a dusting maybe through the overnight or a centimeter or so. But then tomorrow, I've got a lesser chance for us. I think we'll have kind of variable skies, probably a lot of cloud cover, but flurries not as much, as we'll see that change in the wind direction actually helping out a little bit, and then variable skies as we go into Sunday. This is this big storm system, though, that's going to be pushing across the U.S. Heavy amounts of snow all the way over towards D.C. by the time it reaches the seaboard, but also some extensive icing there. So travel in that direction, trying to get to Florida, say, or some warmer temperatures, not such a great idea. A look at some of the heavier snow towards Barrie. It's going to be essentially towards 30 centimeters or so. That's additional snow. Like I said, for us, just a dusting. That low drops to -8 tonight, but the high tomorrow only -4, and some chilly nights coming our way too, Chris.
I tell you, a lot better than what they've been dealing with up north. Thanks for this, Colette.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Hey, have a good night, everybody.